What's up, guys? We are back with another Star Wars Black Series review, taking a look at a couple figures from the most recent wave. And it's kind of a weird wave because 5 of the 8 figures were just released in exclusives. The Endor figures, Cad Bane, and the Armorer, and the Hoth Trooper has been out for a long time. There are only 2 other figures in this entire wave that I didn't already have, and we're taking a look at them now. We've got the Incinerator Trooper from the Mandalorian, and we've got our new revamped Phase 1 Clone Trooper on that newer style body. So a lot of new stuff going on here, even though this guy is kind of a retread in many ways. So we've of course got him here in the new standard packaging. So you got that new angled design with the artwork down the side. You got the figures there in the window. The Mando is on that kind of orangey kind of color scheme. The clone is on the Attack of the Clones red color scheme, and then you've got that artwork on the back as well as a little bit of a bio. The clone is number 2 in that line, and the Incinerator Trooper is number 3 in the Mando line. So yeah, let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. So we're going to start with the figure that I am most excited about as far as, well, these 2 new troopers, because this guy just looks so awesome. I am very happy to get a new Clone Trooper, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, that's just a redo of a figure we've had for years. This guy is all new in terms of aesthetics. It's not all new in terms of construction, because if you're used to that new Stormtrooper that we've been getting, you basically know what's going on here. That is, however, not a bad thing. So let's see what he can do. He is a little bit hindered by his apparatus, and if there's one thing I have kind of a complaint about, it's his backpack in general. We'll get to that. So we've got a head that can look up pretty good. He can look down really good. You've got good tilt side to side and full rotation. The arms go out at the shoulders. They do rotate all the way around, but you do have to pay attention to what you're doing because the pauldrons are connected to part of the engineering that keeps the arm attached to the butterfly joint. So this moves independent of the shoulder itself. You do have your butterfly joint. We've got our single jointed elbows, our new elbows, which are much, much better. They are still single jointed, but they have a great range. And then you've got rotation. We've got hinges and rotation on the wrists. As far as the torso, you can go backwards a little bit, but of course the backpack does kind of put a brick on his back, so it stops him. You can go forward, you can tilt side to side, and then there is a swivel in there as well to get him to go all around. Legs go out only about yay far. That is still kind of a sticking point for this guy. And then they kick forward basically all the way. There is some kick backwards, and then you've got your thigh cut. We've got our new single jointed rotating elbows, or not elbows, these are knees because they're on his legs. And then you've of course got your rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. So no real surprises here. I think he moves just fine. I have had really no issues moving him around. And again, I'm very happy with this new trooper construction that we've been getting. So this is just more of the same. The only real issue that this guy presents, and it's just what it is because he has a backpack. The backpack does kind of stop him from leaning backwards more than he can forwards, but at the end of the day, I don't think it presents too much of an issue when it comes to posing or displaying this particular figure. But where it really all comes together for this guy is just the aesthetics, the look. I mean, I know that just like everybody else, it was really awesome to see this guy do his thing in The Mandalorian. Granted, he doesn't do it for very long, but it's an awesome idea for a figure. I think it works really well just from an aesthetic standpoint, and I'm all about trooper variants. Despite the fact that we are getting so many different kinds of troopers of all kinds right now, I'm still very much happy that we are getting this figure. It utilizes a body that I'm very happy with in terms of construction and articulation, so the new trooper is utilized quite well when it comes to making this guy, and it's just more on top of that. So, you know, you've got the red paint that we see, you know, kind of like we see with 501st kind of clones, where it's a little bit, you know, choppy, a little bit battle worn, and it does come through really well. So you've got it on the upper thighs, on the knee pads, and then down on the ankles. It runs down the pauldrons and on his arms, and then of course on his chest as well. And it's all very crisp and clean, and it's supposed to look a little haphazard and a little worn and used, and it very much comes through quite well here. The one thing that I have an issue with on this figure, and it's not a sense that it's really causing a problem, it's just something that I have to keep doing, it's the backpack. It keeps wanting to come off. Usually when I have something like this, I find that it's too hard to keep them on, or that the pegs don't fit into the holes well enough, and it's always a struggle to keep things like that on. This time they fit in too well. So like I can just sort of look at this wrong, and these are just going to start to pop right out. So they come right out. And maybe this is mine, you know, maybe I have an issue on this one. Hopefully this isn't widespread. If you mess around with it a lot, it's going to start to loosen in my experience. experience, but once you leave it there, it's probably fine. Like, it's not like it's going to fall off just because it's standing on the shelf for a month or two. I don't think I have that much concern, but it is something that's presented a little bit of, maybe it's an annoyance, is what I can call it, an annoyance lately. The sculpt on this is really good, though, so you've got the 2 fuel tanks and then kind of like the accelerant in the middle there. This piece on the bottom is actually a separate piece. So you can pop this out, no real need to do that, but you can pop that out. And then see, I just moved it and the peg sort of popped right out of the back. So that is definitely an annoyance for me. There is an Imperial logo in red on his back, and then these wires go to the gun. So his one, well, I guess it's not his one accessory, but one of his accessories is attached to him at all times. This guy has no paint on it. It's just the gun, but it's a unique sculpt, of course. So there's tons of detail all through it, and then you've got kind of the two little igniters down here, and then the flame comes out of that barrel at the end. I think it looks really good, and he of course has I believe this is a new hand in terms of being able to hold this, because it does allow him to grip the wide end of this gun rather nicely. So it's not just like a gripping hand that has to sit underneath the gun. He does have a bit of a grip to hold onto that, which I really do like. I was concerned that it wasn't going to work very well. So I do have a little bit of an annoyance when it comes to this backpack, but ultimately it's not a huge deal. It is also attached to a pauldron on him, which I very much enjoy. A red pauldron on a trooper, not exactly the most common thing to see, but it does look really nice here in conjunction with all that paint. And then you've got your trooper helmet up here, which does have more of that paint job that runs across the top of the helmet and kind of like the beard almost down there, which I think just looks really intimidating and really cool. Just like, you know, the other red troopers that we've gotten in the past, this one is more of the same, and it's just done on that new body. And I think it looks fantastic. Colors are bright and vibrant, and everything's very crisp. So it's just a lot of stuff that makes for a very, very cool action figure when it's all put together. And then, of course, he does have one big accessory that we can just sort of roll right into, because you've got a flame effect, and this guy just pegs onto the end of the gun here, and then you can have it in his hand kind of like this, and then he will you know, incinerate some rebel scum just like that. And I think this looks fantastic. It's so nice to get energy effects or blast effects of any kind in the Black Series, because for the longest time this wasn't a thing. This never happened. So I know they've sort of crept in here and there, but this one is really fantastic. So of course it's done up in translucent plastic. You've got orange that fades to a, not necessarily red, but a darker orange. And it's really nice size, and it fits on this gun perfectly. No issues with it moving, falling off, anything like that. It looks good, and it is implemented very well. So this guy is a really awesome figure. The only true downside for me is that I do have to fiddle with that backpack a little bit. Hopefully that's not so much a widespread issue and just maybe something that I've got a problem with, but I'm very much going to be looking for more, because I definitely need at least 2 of these guys, right? You can't just have one, because this guy needs to be represented at least a couple times on the shelf. He looks absolutely fantastic. And then for the other half of this review, we've got our new Phase 1 Clone Trooper. So this guy is very much like the previous Clone Trooper I reviewed, the 332nd Phase 2 clone. A lot of reuse because, well, it's a Clone Trooper, and, well, that's what they do. So we have got a very familiar figure here. So if you've got the Camino clone, or if you've got the 332nd Clone Trooper, you basically know what is going on here. The real difference comes in at the head sculpt, the helmet rather. So let's see what he can do real quick. You've got a head that can look up a little bit. The neck is of course independently articulated, which helps it bobble around a good bit. He can look down pretty good. You've got some tilt side to side for attitude, and then full rotation. The arms do go out at the shoulders, and then just like those other clones, you do have a rubbery pauldron piece that attaches at the top of the bicep, so it helps it get over top of that shoulder piece there. You can rotate, and then there is a butterfly joint in there as well to help with some movement crossing the chest. You've got a rotating elbow, and then you've got the new single joint, which works, again, I can't say it enough, it works so much better than everything they ever did with any kind of trooper up until now. And we've got our hinges, and we've got our rotation at the wrist. You've got your torso cut, so we can bobble all the way around, backwards, forward, side to side, and then of course full rotation. The legs do go out about yay far on this guy, and then they kick forward, but as with most clones, I think, well, all of them really, you've got to rotate them to really get the full use because of the design. So the point, I mean, he really can only kick about that far up. Arc it a little bit, and you'll get full kick out of him. And then you've got some back, you've got your thigh cut. We've got our new single jointed rotating knee. I know this is still a sticking point for a lot of folks. Honestly, I am very much fine with it at this point. It's not a double joint. It doesn't have full range, but It's pretty good, and honestly, it's so much more aesthetically pleasing to me that it doesn't really bother me at this point. And then we've got our rocker, and we've got our hinges down at those ankles. You do have to worry about the back kick on those ankles because of the point on the armor is so far down. He only goes about that far, but it's still pretty decent, but really, really far up. So again, if you are familiar with the current state of clone troopers in the Black Series, you know what's going on here, and you know we've got a lot more added range with this guy and just a generally more aesthetically pleasing look with some pins removed. And in that same vein, of course, the aesthetics is all the same. So this is basically the same figure that we've gotten. He's just cleaner this time around. Of course, being a standard Phase 1 clone, he has no markings on him. There's nothing on him. He is white with some black accents when it comes to the under armor on the figure. So it's the same design, same sculpt. Everything seems to be the same between the Camino clone, between the 332nd clone, and this guy. The only real difference is that he is without markings, and then of course he has a different helmet, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But I still do very much like this body. I like the sculpt on it. I mean, it's basically a what you see is what you get kind of figure, and I'll do a comparison here shortly to that original Phase 1 clone, but I prefer this one. The only real negative is the fact that he's one per case, and you're going to have to maybe do a little hunting or just go out of your way a little bit more than usual to get a few of these guys if you need to stock up. But I think this body lends itself very well to being pumped out in mass to get us more troopers. I'm very much happy with the end result. I think it looks great without the pins. It's just very clean, and the line work isn't broken up, and I'm a very big fan of that, especially when it comes to troopers. I mean, I've said it with Marvel Legends, and I say it with Black Series, that even though the range is in some ways limited on these figures, they do look so much better, and it just looks more like a little person rather than actually being an action figure. So I'm pretty happy with the way it turns out. There's not really any paint to talk about on this guy, so no real flubs or misses there. The one big thing to talk about is the helmet, because that's the one thing that differentiates this guy from all the other clones so far, especially the fact that this is Phase 1 instead of Phase 2. And we are still in the situation where they are doing the head thing. So there's a head up underneath this helmet, and you know, I really still don't know why they're doing this, because we know for sure that it does kind of cause a few issues. This guy is a little bit warped. This side of his helmet is kind of tucking in a little bit, so I'm going to try to like heat it up and reshape it a little bit, but that's definitely still a bit of a concern. I haven't had too many issues with it, but it is something that has popped up from time to time for me throughout the obscene number of troopers I've gotten lately. But I do think this guy looks pretty good. If there's one area that has a decent amount of paint on it, it's the helmet. So there's the black accents that run around the top, and then the gray ring, and then of course you got the visor, and most of it is pretty cleanly painted. There is a slight touch of red on the back as well, up at the top of the fin. This is not my preferred Clone Trooper helmet. I've said that a number of times. Phase 2 is my favorite, but I am really happy that they're pumping Phase 1 back out there just so I can get more of these guys, because I only had one of that original regular Trooper. So I'm very happy to get new figures on this new body. The only big downfall is that you might have some issues, like I mentioned, when it comes to the helmets being maybe a little bit pinched in. I think it's mostly just because of how they're tucked into the tray in the package, but in my experience so far, it's been relatively easy to fix them. And then, of course, we have some accessories to talk about, and this guy is more of the same. So we've got two guns, as usual with a Clone Trooper. You've got the standard clone blaster here, no paint on it, just black, kind of shiny plastic. And then we've got the blaster rifle, again, no paint on it, just black, shiny plastic. I have so many of these all over the place now because of how many Camino clones I ended up getting, and then those 332nd clones as well. So it is a prime time for clone weaponry. I do like these guns quite a bit. They very much work for this guy. It's just nothing new. I am very much almost tired of seeing them at this point, but it is exactly what this guy should come with, so no real complaints there. And then for our quick comparison here, there's really not a lot to compare to, but at the same time, when you get them in hand, you're definitely going to notice a difference. So there is a clear color palette difference. The original Phase 1 Clone Trooper seems a little bit more matte finished, a little bit chalkier in some ways, because he does have painted parts. Like, for example, like his knee pads are painted by comparison, whereas the new Troopers are not. And then you've got the double jointed elbows on the original Clone Trooper that really have no range whatsoever, have the pins. Same with the knees down there that have the pins. And then you've just got slightly different helmets. So the original one is a little bit more narrow, a little bit more tightly cinched, just because of the fact that there isn't a head head under there. So it just has to be an actual head, not a helmet like our new figure has. So they are very similar still aesthetically, but it all comes down to articulation truly. I still like the way this guy looks aesthetically. You've got the issues with pins and that kind of thing, but the range on the elbows, the range on the knees while looking seamless on the new figure really does it for me. And it's honestly a bit of a game changer when it comes to the figure in general. It makes this guy far more valuable to me as a toy than this original guy, outside of the fact that, of course, he is the older of the two that may have some rarity value these days. So overall, these troopers are really solid entries in this latest wave of Black Series. The Incinerator Trooper, I think, is probably going to be one of the most desired figures in this wave for sure because, well, when you get one, you're probably going to want at least two, and then you're going to have to go track them down because they're only one per case, so that's kind of an issue on its own. But he looks fantastic. He moves well. The only real issue I have is that, well, the backpack does seem to kind of pop off from time to time on my figure. I don't know if it's a widespread thing, but it's definitely a thing for me. Otherwise, though, he is pretty fantastic. The Phase 1 Clone Trooper is very aesthetically similar to the original figure, but you can't buy that figure anymore, so it's nice to be able to get another shot at this guy on new engineering, and he looks fantastic. He moves really well, and the only true problem that I have on this figure is that the helmet might have that kind of warping issue that we've seen from time to time with these new helmets that have heads underneath them. Otherwise, though, I am all for more Phase 1 clones. I'm all for more clones in general. Pump them out on this body as fast as you can. So that's going to do it for this look at the Star Wars Black Series, Incinerator Trooper, and Phase 1 clone. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.